Good morning, everyone. Wishing you a brand new day filled with joy, positive energy, and peace. Let's start today with light-hearted steps, walking together on Hoai's journey. Since moving in with Hoai, Hung felt like he had found himself again. His body was stronger, his spirit lighter than before. Each morning, when the mist still lingered over the hills, he would run a few laps around the yard, breathing in the fresh mountain air. The crowing of roosters, the chirping of birds, and the earthy fragrance of grass and trees all blended into a gentle melody that marked the beginning of a new day. But what he cherished most was the sight of Hoai and little Tony still asleep each dawn. The boy nestled in his mother's arms, while she held him close, with a serene expression on her face. That simple image alone reassured Hung that his decision to give up his career and stay by their side was the truest choice he had ever made. Friends had suggested a few jobs, but none felt like they truly fit. Last night, after hours of restless thinking, he finally saw a new path. This land was fertile, with mountains and hills abundant, fruits thriving in every season. Why not invest in buying orchards and farmland from those willing to sell, and then connect with buyers in the city? Trucks would come straight to the village for the harvest. All he would need to do was manage and tend the crops. That way, the profit would be far greater than selling retail at the local market, which barely covered daily living expenses. The idea burned in his mind all night. He envisioned groves of pomelos and longans stretching green across the hills, trucks lining up to carry away the ripe harvests. He dreamed of gradually acquiring more land, saving enough one day to buy a truck of his own, and personally transporting goods to trade across the country. When he shared this plan, Hoai's eyes glistened with emotion. She wasn't familiar with business calculations, but her faith in him was absolute. Whatever you decide, I'll follow, as long as you're with me and Tony. As long as we have health to work together, I can endure anything. Those simple words gave Hung even more strength. In that moment, his determination to provide for her and their child burned brighter than ever. For Hoai, listening to him dream aloud stirred up memories of her lonely struggles, freezing winter nights, splitting firewood to keep Tony warm, stormy evenings clutching her child under a leaking roof, or trudging to market with a basket of vegetables, only to return unsold and weary. She had never dared to imagine a day when a man would stand beside her and draw out a future together. Hung had already set his sights on a nearby pomelo orchard. The owner needed money and was willing to sell at a fair price. The trees were still young, so the investment was low, but once the fruit matured, it would surely yield a profit. He told her this would be their first step, then they'd look for more land and expand gradually. Hearing his resolve, tears welled in Hoai's eyes. Once, she believed her fate was bound only to hardship. Yet now, beside her stood a man willing to dream, to act, to sacrifice his career for her and Tony. For her, happiness was this simple: a steady shoulder to lean on, a hand that would never let go as they walked together toward the future. This morning, Hoai planned to harvest the longans from the tree by the stream to sell at the market. The tree was tall and towering, something she was used to doing alone. But this time, Hung couldn't bear to let her. He knew that with even the slightest misstep, she could be in danger. So before taking Tony to school, he decided to climb up and pick some fruit for her, just to feel at ease. The sound of his knife striking the dry branches echoed crack, crack, blending with the morning bird song. High above, Hung climbed swiftly, his strong hands skillfully cutting away the branches weighed down with heavy clusters of fruit, lightening the tree so new shoots could sprout the following season. The longans hung thick and heavy, each one plump and glossy under its pale brown skin, some so ripe they split open, releasing a sweet fragrance that drew bees and butterflies buzzing around. Below, Hoai hurried to catch the branches he passed down. Her hands moved deftly, breaking off the fruit with practiced ease. The baskets filled quickly, her heartbeat keeping pace with the rhythm of the harvest. In the clear morning light, she looked up at Hung, his shirt drenched in sweat. Yet his lips curved in a gentle smile and her heart ached. A wave of emotion swept over her, the feeling of being protected, of having someone to share the burden. It was something she had longed for with a burning ache during all those years of wandering hardship. In just a short while, 2 baskets of golden fruit sat heavy and full. Hung wiped the sweat from his brow and exhaled softly. That's enough for today. Tomorrow, we'll pick more. Hoai held the cluster of lungans tightly in her hand and gave a quiet nod. In her eyes shimmered gratitude mixed with something tender, as if she wanted to lock all the unspoken words deep within her heart. Inside the house, Tony had already woken up. Not seeing his mother or uncle around, the little boy sat quietly on the bed, waving his toy airplane in the air, murmuring to himself as though he was soaring across the sky. The door opened, and Hung stepped in. Tony's face instantly lit up. He rushed into his arms, clinging tightly and refusing to let go. The child's pure laughter rang out, filling the small house with brightness. Holding him close, Hung soothed him gently, poured him a glass of milk, every gesture careful and tender, as though the boy were his very own flesh and blood. From the corner of the room, Hoai paused, watching the 2 wrapped up in each other. A soft smile curved at her lips. Deep within her heart welled up a peace she had never known before, a simple happiness she had long yearned for. She quietly folded a clean set of clothes, then turned and said softly, "You should go now, or you'll be late." In that moment, time itself seemed to slow. A simple morning, a few baskets of freshly picked longans, a child with a bright, innocent smile, a man's gentle presence, all wove together into a perfect fragment of happiness. For Hoai, it was more than just another morning. It was proof that the storms of yesterday had truly passed. After Hung and Tony had left, the courtyard was once again filled only with Hoai's bustling figure. She returned to her familiar daily chores, feeding the clucking chickens crowding around the trough, tossing fresh greens to the white rabbits, then bending down to gather eggs from the coop. The small, round eggs sat neatly in her palm, each one both a fruit of labor and a simple source of joy. Today, she planned to bring longans to the market, and decided to carry along a basket of eggs as well, to make her wares more varied. Once everything was ready, she sat down on the bamboo chair in the shed, her hands carefully plucking longan clusters and dividing them into neat, round bundles, each weighing just about a kilo. Her hands were deft and practiced. Every bundle looked tidy and inviting, the kind you'd want to buy at first glance. With each finished bunch, she gently placed it into the basket, cautious as if afraid of bruising the fragile thin skin of the fruit. When the basket was finally full, she set a smaller basket of eggs on top. By now, the sun was already glaring, casting sharp rays across the eaves. She didn't have time to eat, only drank a quick sip of water before lifting the carrying pole onto her shoulder. 2 heavy baskets swung on either side, the ripe longans giving off a sweet fragrance that lingered in the air. Her slender shoulders trembled slightly under the weight, but her steps were steady, her gaze resolute. Along the sun-drenched village road, the silhouette of the small woman carrying her double load of longans stood out against the quiet morning. She radiated a beauty born of diligence and strength. In her heart, she whispered, "As long as I have health, as long as Tony grows up safe and sound, there is no burden I cannot bear." After dropping Tony off at school, Hung stopped by the orchard owner's house. The man, seeing him arrive, quickly spoke up, "I need to sell my pomelo, orchard urgently. 20 million, in a good season. I can sell the whole orchard for 50. Hung didn't answer right away. He asked to see the orchard in person. Slowly, he walked through, his eyes scanning each tree, quietly calculating in his head. The Diep pomelos bore heavily, around 70 fruits per tree, but their taste was bitter, nothing like the sweet, fragrant Dacian variety. Out of 35 trees, 5 or 6 had already withered. The Fictush pomelos were sparse, just a few clusters here and there. Only the Dacian trees showed real promise, though grafted only 2 years ago. Their fruits were round and firm, each one likely to weigh up to 3 kilos at harvest. He paused, sighing lightly. The orchard had potential, yes, but at 20 million, it wasn't worth it. Turning to the owner, Hung spoke slowly, his tone calm, but firm. I know you need the money urgently, but you can see it yourself. Out of 230 trees, many Diep pomelos are poor quality, some already dead. This year the Fictush is a lost crop. If I buy, I can only offer 18 million. But I'll pay immediately deposit today. In return, you must watch over the orchard until harvest. Any losses, disease, or damage, you'll take responsibility. The owner frowned, trying to salvage. Someone else already offered 19.5. Your price is too low for me. Hung stayed silent, only giving a faint smile before turning to leave. His steps were heavy, but steady, as though he had no need to plead further. That quiet certainty unsettled the orchard owner. After a moment, he called out, "All right. 18 then, but you must put down a deposit now." Hung turned back, extended his hand. "I'll put down 5 million today, the remaining balance in 3 days. Then he pulled out a contract he had already prepared, writing out each clause clearly, requiring the man to sign and leave his fingerprint. He never left things to vague promises. Discipline and certainty were his habits, honed through years of duty. When he finally left the orchard, contract in hand, a fierce sense of conviction rose within him. This wasn't just a deal, it was the first step in rebuilding his livelihood, in securing a safe, steady home for Hoai and Tony, free from storms and uncertainty. Hoai came back from the market after selling her Londons. Red marks still showed on her shoulders from the heavy load, yet her eyes shone with joy. She had sold every last fruit. She quickly set about washing clothes, humming softly as she worked. Out in the yard, Hung returned as well, his face still carrying a trace of weariness, but lit up with a bright smile. He told her how, that very morning, he had negotiated with the pomelo orchard owner and finally secured a fair price. Hearing this, Hoai felt secretly relieved, as though a weight had just been lifted from her shoulders. She remembered her promise to the gourd farmer about helping with the harvest, but hesitated, wanting to check with Hung first. Reading her mind, he urged gently, "You'd better go early. The clouds look heavy, it might rain soon. Let me handle things here." His gaze shifted toward the vegetable patch, still bare and waiting. With a gentle smile, he added, "You already bought the seedlings and fertilizer. I'll plant them for you. If we work hard now, we'll have clean, fresh vegetables to eat later. No need to buy from the market and we'll know it's safe." For a moment, Hoai stood still, watching his figure as he bent down to grab the hoe, preparing to work. A wave of emotion surged through her heart. It had been so long since she'd felt this, having someone by her side, sharing even the smallest tasks of everyday life. Hung watched as Hoai walked away, her small figure quickly disappearing down the narrow path that led to the red dirt road. In the yard, only the clucking of chickens remained, along with the scent of freshly dried laundry fluttering in the sunlight. He picked up the hoe and stepped toward the small garden where she had already prepared seeds and fertilizer. The soil was still damp from last night's rain, each strike of the hoe releasing the earthy, comforting scent of the land. As he worked, he thought to himself, all my life I've been in service used to files, weapons and cases. And yet now, these simple farming tasks bring me a peace I never knew. If every morning I can see her and her son safe, and every afternoon we can harvest green vegetables from our own garden. Maybe that's the happiness I've been longing for. His mind drifted back to the meeting with the orchard owner earlier that morning, recalling the careful calculations he had made. The desire still burned within him, to build a stable source of income, so that Hoai would no longer have to worry about daily bread, and Tony could grow up in a safe, abundant home. Sweat dripped onto the freshly turned soil, but in his eyes shone an unyielding determination. When he finally lifted his head, looking at the neat rows of earth he had just planted, a smile spread across his face. These were not just vegetable beds, they were the beginning of a new life, one he was determined to build for his little family. On the dirt path leading to the gourd patch, the noon sun beat down harshly, each step stirring up golden dust that swirled away in the wind. A wicker basket hung empty on her back. A small knife in hand, Hoai walked slowly, her heart heavy. The patch lay at the edge of the hill, its trellis thick with climbing vines, golden blossoms glowing among the long, green gourds. Brushing aside strands of sweat-damp hair, she began carefully cutting each gourd and placing it into the basket. Her hands worked tirelessly, but her mind was tangled with thoughts of Hung, once a policeman with a steady career, had now willingly stepped away, only so he could stay close to her, and Tony, a gentle, hardworking man, he should have had a calm, ordinary life. Yet fate had dragged him through debts, housing troubles, and now the burden of seeking orchards and trade routes to start all over again. All because he refused to leave her and the child. The more she thought of it, the more her chest ached. Beneath the blazing sun, her eyes blurred with tears, she loved him deeply, fiercely. He had never once complained, only shouldered every hardship in silence to protect her and Tony. Dropping another gourd into the basket, Hoai let out a quiet sigh, whispering to herself, if he has sacrificed so much for us, then I must try even harder. I must be the one to stand by him, so he never feels alone. The basket grew heavier with each harvest, her shoulders straining under the load. Yet inside her, a new resolve glowed bright, to build life anew with Hung, from the smallest things, to mend and make up for all the losses they had endured. Hoai's basket felt light on her shoulder, emptied early at the market. Her steps back home were unburdened, her heart at ease. But as she passed the entrance of a narrow alley, she suddenly froze. The familiar silhouette of a frail figure stood there, eyes fixed on her with overwhelming emotion. Hoai, is that you? A trembling voice called out, she gasped. It was her foster mother, the woman she had relied on for years. The one she had once tenderly called mother. Hoai's heart clenched. Dropping the basket, she rushed forward and threw her arms around the woman. My dear girl, all this time, I thought I had lost you forever. The woman's voice broke as her frail hands shook, caressing Hoai's hair, her face, as if afraid this moment of reunion might vanish like a dream. Right there in the middle of the path, mother and daughter clung to each other, sobbing uncontrollably. Passers-by turned to look, yet no one intruded, for such a reunion was enough to still every heart. Hoai led her foster mother back home, poured a cup of tea, and set it before her. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Mum, I'm so sorry, I made you worrying all this time. The woman clutched her hand tightly, her eyes red and swollen. Ever since you went missing, I searched everywhere. Sometimes I went all the way to the district, sometimes I passed by the old house, always hoping you might come back, but every time, it was silent. There were nights when I prayed, if I could never see you again, then at least let you still be alive, somewhere out there. Hearing her words, tears streamed down Hoai's cheeks. She choked as she recounted everything that had happened, being harmed, losing her memory, being saved, and the fragile days of struggling to rebuild her life. With each detail, her foster mother's grip tightened, her face a mix of anguish and relief that her daughter was, at last, safe. "My dear child," the woman whispered, "heaven takes pity on the kind-hearted. That's why you met good people who helped you, hearing what you endured. My heart aches. If only you had been with me back then, none of this would have happened." Hoai's eyes glistened as she softly replied, "I've thought about that so much too, Mum, but now I'm alive, I have Tony, and I found you again. That's more than enough for me." Inside the little house, their voices filled the air, bridging the gap of all those lost years. Hoai's heart felt both lighter and heavy with guilt. While her foster mother had searched in desperation, she herself had been swallowed by her own suffering, unable to send even a word to ease the woman's pain. She held her mother's hand tighter, her voice trembling. "Mum, it's been so long since I last sat with you like this. There's so much I haven't told you yet. Why don't you stay today and share a meal with me? Just a simple dinner, but warm and full of love." The storms of life had passed. In this moment, only the sacred bond of mother and daughter remained. From the small kitchen, the smoke of evening rice began to rise, and the sound of their gentle chatter lingered. It was just an ordinary meal, yet for Hoai, it was the happiest one after all those months when she thought she might never see her mother again. Another peaceful day came to a close. Though the struggles of making a living were still there, Hoai felt her heart at ease because she was now surrounded by her loved ones, working with her own hands to nurture the little home she could finally call hers. Amid the simple rhythms of rural life, picking fruit, tending the garden, selling at the market, she could feel time itself moving slowly, almost tenderly. And within that slowness lay the very happiness she had long yearned for: a home to return to, a hand to hold, and a tomorrow to believe in.
Một ngày yên bình lại khép lại, những vất vả mưu sinh dẫu còn đó, nhưng Hoài ca thấy lòng nhẹ nhõm hơn khi được sống cùng những người thương yêu, được tự tay lao động vun vén cho mái nhà nhỏ của mình. Hãy để lại một bình luận để chúc phúc cho cô gái ấy trên hành trình sắp tới nhé.